Welcome back to Conversations That Awaken by Joe Bandra. If you've been with us since episode 1, thank you for taking this journey with us. Over the first 10 episodes, we've questioned many of the assumptions most of us inherited without ever examining them. We've explored the nature of reality, the illusion of separation, the origins of belief, the question of God, the self-organizing universe, the fact of being, the limits of language, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. You may have noticed that we've returned to some of the same ideas more than once. That wasn't by accident. Some truths cannot be understood by hearing them only once. They must be approached from different angles, examined through different lenses, and reflected upon until they become your own direct insight. Repetition is not about convincing you, it is about inviting you to observe more deeply. Our purpose has never been to give you another belief system. It has always been to encourage you to examine, question, investigate, and ultimately understand for yourself. Because borrowed knowledge is information. Direct experience, on the other hand, is transformation. If you're joining us for the first time, we encourage you to begin with episode 1. Each conversation builds upon the previous one, forming a journey from questioning the world to questioning the one who believes they are separate from it. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for listening. Take a moment to become fully present. Set aside, just for a little while, everything you think you know. And together, let's question everything. I am Kim. I hope you had the opportunity to read or listen to Finding Neve by Joe Bandra. The name Neve, heaven spelled backward, symbolizes a journey of self-discovery, an inward return to the source of true happiness. It is an invitation to look beyond the stories we tell ourselves, rediscover our authentic nature, and awaken to the peace and wholeness that have always been within us.
In our previous deep dives, you've joined us in questioning identity, language, the self, death, sin, time, all the light stuff, right?
Just casual, everyday topics.
Right? Totally casual.
Yeah.
But today, I think today poses literally the most astonishing question we've tackled yet. And it all stems from our deep dive into this upcoming book, The Nature of Reality by Joe Bandra.
It is a remarkable piece of work, truly.
It really is. So to get us into it, you know when you go to a planetarium?
Oh yeah, love those.
Right, so you go in, you sit back in those heavily reclined chairs, and the lights just completely dim down to pitch black.
And suddenly you were entirely surrounded by the cosmos.
Exactly. It feels infinitely huge. You look up and your brain is telling you that you are staring into like billions of light years of deep, expanding space.
It's incredibly convincing. I mean, you feel like a tiny, insignificant speck floating in this massive, overwhelming expanse of stars and galaxies.
Yeah, the sheer scale of it creates this profound sense of isolation, like you are just this tiny thing.
And for most of us, honestly, that is exactly how we go through our entire lives.
Right. We feel like this tiny, isolated point of consciousness, looking out through the tiny windows of our eyes at a universe that is just unimaginably vast.
A universe that is fundamentally happening to us. We feel like the passive observers of a giant machine.
But then, you know, sitting in that dark planetarium room, you remember the mechanics of the building.
Right, you realize the trick.
You realize that the entire planetarium, the stars, the vastness, the space itself is not actually out there.
It is all being projected from a single tiny light source right in the center of the room.
Exactly. The vastness is a localized illusion generated from a single point.
And that realization changes absolutely everything about how you relate to the space around you.
Which brings us to the central premise of Bandra's book. Today, we are asking a question that completely flips that planetarium metaphor on its head.
It's a huge shift.
What if reality is not happening to you? What if everything you have ever experienced, everything you've loved, feared, celebrated, or mourned is actually appearing within awareness itself?
I mean, it is a radical inversion of how we are taught to perceive the world from the time we are literally infants.
It really is.
The default human assumption, and let's be honest, it is a very practically useful assumption for survival, is that we are tiny biological observers trapped inside an unimaginably vast pre-existing universe.
Okay, Let's unpack this, because this is a massive paradigm shift.
It's huge.
And frankly, my immediate reaction is to push back. I mean, if I step outside and a city bus is barreling toward me, I am not going to stand there and philosophize about how the bus is just appearing in my awareness.
Right. I would highly advise against doing that.
Right. I'm going to jump out of the way because the bus is a real physical object that will crush my biological body. So what you're suggesting, or what Bandra's material is suggesting, feels completely counterintuitive to basic survival. Are we really saying the universe appears within awareness rather than the other way around?
That is exactly what is being proposed.
Yeah.
But we have to clarify right at the start to address your bus scenario.
Please do, because I need to know the bus is real.
This isn't about denying physical consequences. Bandra is not suggesting you are invincible.
Okay, good.
Nor is this about you being special in some egotistical way, like you possess mystical powers or you're secretly the main character of a video game.
Right. It's not solipsism.
Exactly. It's simply about the fundamental mechanics of existence. The bus has consequences for the body, yes. But the proposition is that the body, the bus, the street, and the space they occupy are all experiences arising from the deeper ground.
So awareness is the ground itself.
Yes. It's proposing that awareness is the very fabric from which every single experience is woven.
Man. Okay, so before we dive into the deep end here, I want to ask you, the listener, to do something for me.
This is important, yeah.
Take a deep breath. Just for the duration of this deep dive, try to suspend everything you think you know about how the world works.
Which is hard to do.
It's really hard. Suspend the physics you learned in high school. Suspend your religious or secular assumptions. And listen, this isn't an invitation to just blindly believe what we are saying.
Please don't do that. Skepticism is required here.
Right. Actually, don't believe us. This is instead an invitation to investigate your own direct experience.
Because we are going to provide a series of different lenses to examine reality today. But you have to be the one to actually look through them.
You have to test these ideas against what it actually feels like to be alive.
Yeah.
So to understand this massive reality-bending shift, we can't just take one angle.
No, we need a comprehensive approach.
Exactly. So let's start with the framework that modern society usually trusts the most to define reality for us. We need to look through the lens of science.
The perfect place to start.
And specifically, I want to start with the neuroscience of how we perceive the world. Because I think a lot of people just assume their eyes are like clear glass windows looking out at reality.
Which is so funny because science has a long history of continuously transforming our understanding of reality, usually by proving that human intuition is completely and utterly wrong.
Oh, almost always wrong.
Every time we think we had the universe figured out, the scientific method pulls the rug out from under us.
Like, think about it. 500 years ago, the Earth seemed flat and completely motionless.
It was basic common sense.
Right. You'd look outside, the ground wasn't moving, the sun was clearly moving across the sky. You would be considered an absolute lunatic to suggest otherwise.
But then came Copernicus, who mathematically demonstrated that we are moving around the sun.
And then Galileo built the telescope and confirmed it.
And then Newton gave us the laws of motion and gravity, showing that the force pulling an apple to the ground is the exact same force keeping the moon in orbit.
Which is just wild to think about. Every single generation discovered that reality was vastly stranger than their intuition allowed them to believe.
Which brings us to a modern scientific rug pull, which is neuroscience.
Yeah. When you actually look at the biological mechanics of perception, neuroscience tells us something that sounds like a simulation theory from a sci-fi movie.
But it is absolute peer-reviewed biological fact.
The listener needs to hear this clearly. You have never, not even for a fraction of a second, experienced the outside world directly.
What's fascinating here is the sheer mechanics of how the brain creates a world. I mean, let's break down what is actually happening when you think you are interacting with your environment.
Let's do it. Walk me through it.
Okay, let's say you are walking through a park. You see a massive oak tree, you hear a dog bark, and you smell fresh coffee from a nearby cafe.
My intuition says I am directly touching that reality, like I am in the park.
But let's trace the pathway. Light from the sun, which takes 8 minutes to travel through the vacuum of space, enters Earth's atmosphere, bounces off the physical object, the oak tree, and a tiny fraction of those photons strike the front of your eyes.
Okay, so the photons hit my eyes.
Right. They pass through the cornea, which focuses them, and hit the retina at the back of your eye. At the exact same time, that dog barks.
And that bark is just a sequence of air pressure waves, right?
Exactly. It's compressing and expanding, traveling through the air until it vibrates the delicate tympanic membrane, your eardrum.
Meanwhile, the volatile chemical compounds evaporate off the hot coffee, float through the air, and bind to olfactory receptors in my nose.
And this is the crucial part that we always overlook. None of those things, not the photons of light, not the acoustic pressure waves, not the volatile chemicals, actually enter your brain.
None of them.
None of them. Your brain is a 3-pound lump of fat and water locked inside a pitch-black, silent vault of bone called your skull.
It has no windows. It has absolutely no direct access to the outside world. It is completely sealed off.
Right. So what happens? Those sensory organs, the retina, the inner ear, the nasal receptors, they act as translators.
They are doing transduction.
Exactly. Transduction. Converting light, pressure, and chemistry into tiny electrical impulses. And those impulses travel along cranial nerves into that dark vault.
So the brain is just sitting in the dark, receiving this massive influx of electrical Morse code.
That's a great way to put it. Morse code.
And from those electrical signals, the brain constructs a model. It hallucinates a reality.
It renders a 3D, full-color, surround sound simulation of the environment.
Which means when you see the vibrant green of the oak tree leaves, that green does not exist out in the physical world.
Not at all. Green is simply the way your visual cortex interprets a specific wavelength of electromagnetic radiation.
The universe itself has no color.
The universe is silent.
The universe has no smell.
It is a remarkably effective evolutionary model. I mean, it renders reality in a way that keeps you alive, helps you find food, avoid danger.
It's highly adaptive.
It is. But we must never forget that it is still, fundamentally, just a localized rendering. You are interacting with a map, not the actual territory.
Okay, I'm with you on the mechanics. Science does an incredible job of explaining the how.
It really does.
We can put someone in an fMRI machine and see exactly which region of the occipital lobe lights up when they look at a tree. But this introduces a massive brick wall in neuroscience.
The hard problem.
Yes, what philosophers of mind call the hard problem of consciousness, because mapping the electrical pathways still doesn't answer the core question.
Which is, why does this complex information processing feel like anything at all?
Right. Science explains how brains and experiences are related, but why does conscious experience exist in the first place?
That is the boundary of our current scientific paradigm. You have the easy problems of consciousness, which, by the way, are still incredibly difficult.
Yeah, finding neural correlates is not easy.
No, it's not. But the easy problems involve finding how the brain processes contrast or how it recognizes a face. But the hard problem is asking why subjective experience exists at all.
Why doesn't all this complex biological data processing just happen in the dark, like a computer processing code?
Exactly. A computer can recognize a face, but we don't assume the computer experiences the face. Why does it feel like something to be a human being?
And this is where I really struggle with the standard materialistic worldview.
How so?
Well, the assumption is that physical matter is the absolute baseline of reality, right?
Yeah.
And consciousness is just this weird accidental byproduct of complex brain matter.
That is the mainstream scientific assumption, yes.
Well, wait a minute. If every single thing I experience is a simulation constructed in awareness, then every fMRI scan, every microscope, every scientific instrument, every textbook, and every brain I've ever seen is itself something I am experiencing through awareness.
You're pointing out the ultimate circularity of materialism?
Exactly. If I am a neuroscientist looking at a scan of a brain on a computer monitor, I am using my awareness to look at a monitor that is showing me a picture of the physical object that supposedly creates my awareness.
It feels like trying to pull yourself up by your own shoelaces.
It totally does. What really comes first here, is awareness a product of the physical world? Or is our entire concept of a physical world a product appearing within awareness?
It's a profound paradox that forces us to question our foundational assumptions. It continually reminds us that everyday appearances can be drastically different from the underlying processes.
It just shows that the solid physical world we take for granted is a biological construction.
Which reminds me of this brilliant kind of humorous thought experiment from Bandra's text.
Oh, the alien one.
Yes. Imagine that a group of highly advanced extraterrestrials land on Earth tomorrow, and their job is to write a comprehensive report on the human species.
Right, so they observe us without any of our cultural baggage or built-in assumptions.
Exactly. They sit in orbit, taking notes. They observe these bipedal, carbon-based creatures who spend roughly 80 years on this planet.
And what do these creatures do with their brief window of consciousness?
Well, they endlessly argue about fictional borders drawn on the dirt.
They passionately scream at televisions about which group of humans can move a leather ball across a line.
And they fight devastating wars over whose ancient textbook holds the absolute truth.
And the kicker is, they are doing all of this while clinging to a giant spinning rock that is traveling 67,000 miles an hour around a massive ball of burning nuclear gas.
A star they did absolutely nothing to create.
It really highlights the absurdity of the human condition. We take our constructed models of reality so incredibly seriously.
Completely ignoring the sheer improbability of our actual situation in the cosmos.
The aliens' conclusion would have to be that the universe has an incredible sense of humor. We just get completely lost in the simulation.
We really do. But that realization that our biology fundamentally isolates us from objective reality leaves a massive gap in our understanding.
What do you mean?
Well, if biology tells us we are living in a sensory simulation generated by our nervous system, it begs a much larger question. What is the raw material outside the simulation?
If we strip away the brain's interpretation, what is actually out there?
Right. What does physics tell us about the actual behavior of the physical universe?
Okay, let's follow that logic. If we want to know what the universe is made of before the brain renders it into trees and buses, we have to move from the squishy world of biology into the mathematical realm of physics.
Specifically, quantum mechanics.
Because if you thought the brain in a dark vault was weird, the pioneers of quantum physics took weird to an entirely new, terrifying level.
They really did. We mentioned the classical progression earlier, Copernicus to Newton.
Right. Newtonian physics gave us a universe that made sense to our primate brains. It was a giant clockwork mechanism.
If you knew the position and velocity of every particle, you could theoretically predict the future. It was predictable, solid, reliable. Matter was made of little hard billiard balls.
But then came the pioneers of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The heavy hitters.
The top 5 quantum physicists who completely shattered classical mechanics.
We're talking about Max Planck, Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and Erwin Schrödinger.
These 5 men essentially took Newton's beautiful clockwork universe and dismantled it piece by piece.
What did they find that was so destructive to the old model?
They discovered that at the subatomic level, the foundational building blocks of reality do not behave the way our everyday intuition expects them to.
Not even a little bit.
First of all, the very concept of solid matter is an illusion. Atoms are almost entirely empty space.
I always try to visualize this.
Well, to put it in perspective, if you took the nucleus of a hydrogen atom and scaled it up to the size of a marble sitting on the 50-yard line of a football stadium.
Okay, I have a marble on the 50-yard line.
The single electron orbiting that nucleus would be a tiny gnat flying around the highest seats in the bleachers.
Wow, so the chair you're sitting on, the physical body you're living in right now, the device you are using to listen to this, it is 99.99999% empty space.
The feeling of solidity is just electromagnetic fields repelling each other.
But as bizarre as that is, it gets so much weirder. Because these physicists discovered that matter itself at that deep subatomic level doesn't even exist in a fixed state.
Right. It behaves as both a particle and a wave, depending on how it is investigated.
This is the crux of the quantum revolution. And we really need to explain the mechanics of how they figured this out, because it sounds like magic until you look at the experiment.
It revolves around the famous double-slit experiment.
Let's break this down for you guys listening. Imagine you have a wall with 2 vertical slits cut into it. Behind that wall is a screen that records where things hit it.
Simple setup.
If you fire a machine gun at the wall, the bullets that make it through the slits will form 2 distinct vertical bands on the back screen. That's how solid particles behave.
Now, what happens if you shoot a wave of water through those same 2 slits?
Right, water acts totally differently.
The wave hits the wall, passes through both slits simultaneously, and splits into 2 new waves. As those 2 waves ripple outward, they crash into each other.
Where a peak meets a peak, they amplify. Where a peak meets a trough, they cancel each other out.
Exactly. And when this hits the back screen, it creates an interference pattern, a series of many alternating bands of high and low intensity, not just 2 bands.
Okay, so bullets make 2 bands. Waves make an interference pattern of many bands. So what happens when physicists fire a single electron, which we thought was a tiny solid bullet, at those 2 slits?
Logic dictates that a single electron, a fundamental building block of matter, must go through either the left slit or the right slit. creating two bands on the back screen.
But that isn't what happens.
No, it's not. When you fire single electrons, one at a time, they somehow build up an interference pattern on the back screen.
Which makes zero sense for a solid particle.
The only way this is mathematically possible is if the single electron travels as a wave of probabilities, passes through both slits simultaneously, interferes with itself, and only becomes a fixed particle when it finally hits the screen.
Which is mind-blowing enough. The universe at its base level is just a cloud of mathematical probabilities. But here is the part that breaks my brain, and where the observer comes in.
The observer effect.
The physicists couldn't believe this math, so they said, let's put a detector right at the slits to watch exactly which slit the electron goes through.
And when they did that, when they actively observed or measured the system, the electron stopped behaving like a wave.
It just gave up.
It suddenly acted like a bullet again, going through only one slit and creating just two bands on the back screen.
The very act of gathering information, the act of measurement or observation, collapsed the probability wave into a fixed reality.
The universe behaves differently depending on whether or not we are looking at it.
How is that even possible? It suggests that the act of observation is entangled with the fundamental behavior of reality itself.
It really does. And this wasn't the only assumption that fell apart. You have Albert Einstein, who proved that space and time are not these fixed, rigid stages on which events happen independently.
Right, relativity.
He showed they are woven together into a single, flexible fabric called space-time. And, more importantly, they are relative.
Time isn't an absolute grid.
No. Time moves differently depending on your speed and your proximity to gravity. A clock on a fast-moving spaceship ticks slower relative to a clock on Earth. Time isn't the same for every observer.
Which again points right back to the observer. Everything Einstein discovered about relativity relies on the concept of reference frames.
Exactly.
The flow of time and the measurement of space are fundamentally understood through the specific vantage point of an awareness. You cannot describe the physical universe without including the one looking at it.
What's fascinating here is how these physicists philosophically interpreted their own mathematics.
Because they weren't just number crunchers.
Not at all. They were deeply philosophical thinkers, trying to understand what their equations actually meant for human existence.
Take Erwin Schrödinger.
Yes, famous for the thought experiment with the cat in the box that is simultaneously alive and dead until observed.
For cat.
Right. But Schrödinger didn't just stop at the bizarre math. He looked at the implications of quantum mechanics and concluded that consciousness cannot be plural.
Wait, what does that mean? Consciousness cannot be plural.
He believed there is essentially only one consciousness in the universe. In his view, the idea of billions of separate, isolated minds is an illusion.
Oh, wow.
He wrote that consciousness is a singular reality, experienced through a multitude of apparent biological viewpoints.
Just like light passing through a prism splinters into many colors, the singular reality splinters into many perspectives, but it remains one light.
That is exactly how he framed it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because you also have David Bohm, one of the most significant theoretical physicists of the 20th century, who worked closely with Einstein.
A brilliant mind.
Bohm suggested that beneath this fragmented world we perceive, the world of separate objects, separate people, separate events, which he called the explicate order, there lies a much deeper, undivided reality.
Which he called the implicate order.
Right.
It's a brilliant conceptual framework. Think of it like a multiplayer virtual reality game.
Oh, I like this analogy.
In the game, you and I might be standing in different cities, holding different objects, experiencing totally different environments. In the explicate world of the headset, everything is separate and distinct.
But where is all of that actually happening?
It's all being generated by the exact same centralized server. At the level of the server, the implicate order, there is no distance between my character and yours. It's all just one unbroken stream of code.
And Bohm used a much more poetic analogy for this, which fits perfectly with Bandra's premise in the book. Imagine watching the waves on the surface of a vast ocean.
A classic metaphor.
If you only look at the surface, every wave seems distinct and separate. One is a towering tsunami, one is a gentle ripple. One crashes early, another rolls all the way to the beach.
They look like individual, independent entities with their own lifespans.
Exactly. But if you sink just a few feet below the surface, you realize that every single wave is simply the ocean itself, temporarily expressing itself in a different geometric form.
The wave isn't a separate entity floating on the ocean. The wave is the ocean moving.
And that is exactly what quantum mechanics is increasingly pointing toward. A reality that is fundamentally interconnected, non-local, and deeply entangled in a way that completely defies our intuitive biological sense of separation.
Science isn't saying the universe is literally a fake dream where nothing matters, but it absolutely proves that our ordinary, everyday picture of reality, the solid, separate, linear world, is drastically, wildly incomplete.
If we accept what physics is telling us, that matter is mostly empty space, that reality is a probability wave until observed, and that everything is fundamentally interconnected,
It leaves us in a very precarious position.
it leaves me feeling like I have no ground to stand on. I mean, if neuroscience tells me my physical world is just a localized sensory rendering hallucinating in the dark, and quantum physics tells me the raw material outside the brain is this bizarre, observer-dependent soup of probabilities.
How do you know anything is real?
Yes. How do I establish a baseline for truth?
When science dissolves the solid ground beneath our feet, we have to turn to a different set of tools. We have to shift from measuring the external world to questioning the very nature of knowing itself.
We have to move from physics to philosophy.
Which brings us to the exact question philosophers have been obsessing over for thousands of years.
It's the core dilemma of epistemology.
How do you actually know that anything exists entirely outside of your own experience?
It's a question that can induce a kind of existential vertigo if you really sit with it.
It really can. We walk through life assuming there is an objective physical universe out there, and we were just moving through it like actors on a stage. But if you try to prove that assumption, you hit a wall.
Let's do this right now with you, the listener. You are hearing the sound of my voice. Maybe you're driving down a highway, maybe you're doing the dishes in your kitchen, or maybe you're out for a run.
You can feel the weight of your body.
You might see the dashboard of your car or the trees passing by. Where are all of those experiences actually occurring?
Every single sensory detail you are perceiving right now is an appearance registering within your consciousness.
You have never encountered a tree outside of your experience of a tree.
You have never encountered a sound outside of your experience of hearing.
And before we get into the profound implication of this, I want to explicitly mention Joe Bandra's framing here in the nature of reality. Bandra sets up a deep insight by clarifying what the philosopher is actually doing.
Right, because people misunderstand philosophers.
They really do. Bandra notes that the true philosopher doesn't sit around denying the world. They aren't trying to convince you that the bus isn't real or that your family is just a figment of your imagination.
They aren't saying the world is fake.
No. They simply ask one piercing, inescapable question. What is the certainty?
And that is the crux of the philosophical inquiry. What can you claim to know with absolute, unshakable certainty?
Well, you cannot be certain that the world looks exactly the way your brain renders it because neuroscience proved otherwise.
You cannot be certain that time flows in a straight line because physics proved otherwise.
You cannot even be certain that you aren't dreaming right now.
But there is one bedrock truth. The only certainty you have is that experience is present.
Boom. That's it. Awareness is happening.
Everything else, every scientific theory we just discussed, every memory of your childhood, every assumption about what you were going to do tomorrow is an idea or an image that is interpreted through that present experience.
Okay, I have a challenge for you, the listener, and this is a specific pushback drawn directly from Bandra's text.
I love this part.
When I first read this, it sounded ridiculous, but if you answer it honestly, it breaks your whole worldview open. Here's the question. Have you ever actually seen your own brain?
I think we can safely say the vast majority of human beings have never seen their own brain.
Right. You absolutely haven't. You've perhaps seen an MRI scan on a screen.
You've seen plastic models in a high school biology class.
You've seen photographs of other people's brains in textbooks.
So your absolute unquestioned certainty that you currently have a physical brain inside your skull and that this physical brain is generating your consciousness
is entirely based on a conceptual assumption. The very idea of having a brain is simply a complex thought supported by visual images and scientific teachings, all of which appear within your awareness.
This raises an important question, and it represents the ultimate philosophical dilemma of our time. It's the knot we're trying to untangle today.
Let's untangle it.
Is consciousness something that exists inside the physical universe, like a spark of electricity generated by biological machinery, which is what materialism claims? Or is the physical universe something that is known entirely and exclusively within consciousness?
My instinct is to say, well, obviously the universe was here before I was born, so consciousness must be inside the universe.
But the problem is, You can't prove that.
Exactly. You cannot step outside of your own awareness to check the objective universe. It's impossible.
You can't put your awareness in a little box, step outside the box, and compare it to an independent reality to see if they match.
It is a completely closed loop. Every instrument, every telescope, every mathematical equation you use to measure reality is fundamentally made of the substance of your own awareness.
Which should invoke a profound sense of humility in us.
Truly.
When human beings claim to know with absolute certainty what the universe is, how it started, and what our place is within it, we're often ignoring the fundamental boundary of our own epistemology.
We only know what we experience.
We cannot speak of a universe outside of experience, because the very attempt to speak of it is an experience.
So if philosophy strips away all our assumptions and leaves us with the bare fact that experience is our only absolute certainty, it forces us to ask another question.
What's that?
If experience is all I have, why is my experience so drastically different from yours?
Right.
We have to look at the mechanics of how the human mind takes the raw data of the universe and shapes it, colors it, and twists it into the personal reality we experience every day.
We have a look at the construction of meaning through the lens of psychology.
Exactly. Let's pivot to psychology.
Psychology is, at its core, the study of perception, behavior, and the mind. And one of the most vital foundational revelations of modern psychology is that perception is never, ever passive.
It is an incredibly active, constructive process.
Yes.
We really tend to think of ourselves as passive biological cameras, like my eyes are the lens, my memory is the hard drive, and I just passively record the events that happen to me. I assume that the world is exactly as I remember it.
But cognitive psychology demonstrates that couldn't be further from the truth. The human mind is constantly, actively constructing meaning out of ambiguity.
Using top-down processing, right?
Exactly. We use top-down processing. The brain isn't just waiting for information to arrive. It is constantly generating predictions about what is going to happen next based on past experiences, and then it uses sensory input merely to correct its predictions.
So reality is heavily filtered.
Heavily. Before a neutral event out in the physical world ever becomes a part of my life or my personal story, it has to pass through the dense filters of your memories, your core beliefs, your emotional state, your cultural background, and even the specific vocabulary of the language you speak.
It's like an internal editing room. The raw footage comes in, and your brain immediately chops it up, discards the parts that don't fit your worldview, which is confirmation bias, adds a dramatic soundtrack, puts a color grade on it, and then presents it to your consciousness saying, here is the absolute reality of what just happened.
That is a perfect way to describe it. The mind is a narrative engine. And the most crucial insight here is that the event itself is almost always entirely neutral.
It is just physics happening.
It is just matter in motion. It is the experience of the event that is intensely subjective.
Which explains so much of the conflict in the world. Two people can witness the exact same event or live through the exact same political situation and walk away with two entirely different, deeply felt realities.
Yes. And much of human suffering, perhaps the vast majority of our psychological distress, comes not directly from the events themselves, but from the narratives, the written stories, and the meaning we automatically construct around those events.
Let me share a perfect analogy for this narrative instruction drawn from the source material.
The two brothers.
Yes, the two brothers. Imagine two brothers. They grow up in the exact same house with the exact same parents, living through the exact same turbulent childhood events.
They have the same socioeconomic status, the same neighborhood, the same schools.
They're exposed to the exact same raw data. 20 years later, a psychologist interviews them. The first brother says, "My childhood made me totally fearless. Because things were unstable, I learned to rely on myself, adapt to anything, and take risks."
Then the psychologist talks to the second brother, and he says, "My childhood made me incredibly fearful. Because things were unstable, I learned that the world is completely unpredictable, dangerous, and I need to hide."
It's the exact same baseline data, the exact same set of historical events.
Same event, completely different story.
And both of those brothers believe, with every fiber of their being, that their story is the absolute objective truth of what happened.
They don't realize that their reality is an active, ongoing collaboration between the neutral data of the universe and the storytelling machinery of their own minds.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Recognizing that our minds are relentless meaning-making machines is incredibly empowering. It means that the psychological reality we are experiencing right now is largely a narrative construct.
and if it's a construct, it means it is malleable. We actually have the power to examine and rewrite the underlying narratives that are causing us unnecessary suffering.
Which brings up another brilliant analogy for how we get trapped in these narratives.
Yeah.
The movie theater.
Oh, I love this one.
Think about the last time you went to see a really intense, gripping film. Let's say it's a tense psychological thriller.
Okay, I'm there.
You're sitting in the theater, smelling the popcorn, the lights are dimmed. On the screen, the hero is walking down a dark hallway, and you know the killer is around the corner. What happens to your physical body in that moment?
Your biology responds exactly as if it were real.
Exactly.
Your heart rate spikes. Your palms start to sweat. Your muscles tense up in a fight or flight response. Your breathing becomes shallow. You might even physically jump or gasp when the jump scare happens.
Your body physicalizes the narrative. You feel genuine terror or maybe genuine sorrow if it's a tragic scene and you find yourself crying real tears.
But at the exact same time, a deeper, quieter part of your awareness knows with absolute certainty that you are sitting in a perfectly safe, climate-controlled room, looking at photons of light projected onto a flat canvas screen.
The experience of fear is very real. The physiological reactions are real, but the story generating them is a constructed illusion.
And our everyday lives operate on this exact same psychological mechanism. We get completely, utterly lost in the movie of my life.
We feel the anxiety about our careers, the anger at our neighbors, the desperate need for approval.
We get totally immersed in the drama, and in doing so, we forget that it is a projection.
That forgetfulness, that total identification with the narrative construct of the ego, is what creates so much existential distress.
We forget that we are the silent awareness in which the movie is playing, and we begin to believe that we are the vulnerable, isolated character up on the screen fighting for survival.
It's a tragic forgetting.
So we've walked through this logically. We looked at neuroscience, which proves our physical world is just a biological rendering in the dark.
We looked at quantum physics, which proves the underlying reality is a bizarre, interconnected soup of probabilities.
We looked at philosophy, which proves the only certainty we have is the existence of experience itself.
And we looked at psychology, which proves our minds actively construct the meaning of that experience.
The question I have now is this a new realization? Are we just figuring this out because we have fMRI machines and particle colliders?
Not at all.
Or is there a tradition, a lineage of human thought that has been trying to tell us this exact same thing for thousands of years?
That leads us directly to the mystics.
Now, when modern people hear the word mysticism, they usually roll their eyes.
They assume it means fortune tellers, crystal healing, or magic tricks.
Right. But that's a modern distortion. In this context, we are talking about dedicated individuals across human history, spanning vastly different civilizations and eras, who have actively investigated their own consciousness.
And pointed toward a reality that exists beyond conceptual thought and language.
They are essentially the astronauts of inner space.
That is a great way to describe them. They didn't have telescopes or microscopes. They only had the laboratory of their own minds.
And what is truly staggering is the consistency of their reports. You have people living centuries apart with absolutely no cultural contact, using completely different religious frameworks, pointing to the exact same realization.
Let's look at 5 of the top mystical traditions in human history and examine their core teachings on this exact subject.
Okay, let's start in ancient India. We have the foundational texts of Hindu philosophy, the Upanishads.
Their central defining declaration, which has echoed for millennia, is a phrase in Sanskrit, Tat Tivam Asi.
Translated, that means that thou art.
It is the ultimate statement of non-duality. What it means is that the ultimate infinite reality of the universe, the that, and your deepest essential conscious nature, the Tao, are not two different things.
You are not a separate soul placed into the universe. You are the universe looking at itself.
The drop of water realizes it is made of the ocean.
Beautiful. Second, we look at the historical Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. His entire teaching was an invitation to stop clinging to fixed conceptual identities.
He taught the concept of anatta, or non-self.
He asked his followers to observe the nature of experience directly, and when they did, they would see that the separate, permanent self we obsess over is actually an illusion.
It's just a temporary grouping of thoughts and sensations, and clinging to this illusion is the root cause of all suffering.
Third, we look at the Christian mystics in Europe. Think of figures like Meister Eckhart in the 13th century or Teresa of Avila.
They continually pointed past the rigid external dogmas of the Church and spoke of an internal transformation.
They spoke of finding the kingdom of God within. Eckhart famously wrote, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me."
They described a profound union with the divine, where the boundaries of the separate ego completely melt away into a larger whole.
Fourth, we look at the Sufi teachers, the mystical branch of Islam. Their literature and poetry, think of the incredibly popular works of Rumi or Hafiz, is entirely focused on dissolving the separate self into the vastness of divine love.
They don't speak of God as an old man in the clouds judging them.
No, they speak of an intoxicating, all-encompassing reality where the lover and the beloved merge into one. It's about dropping the drop of water back into the infinite ocean.
And fifth, we look at the Taoist tradition from ancient China. The foundational text, the Tao Te Ching, traditionally attributed to Laozi, opens with a very explicit warning about the limits of the human mind.
The very first line states that the Tao, which translates loosely to the way, or the ultimate reality that can be spoken of or conceptualized in language, is not the eternal, true Tao.
The intellect can only grasp fragments. It cannot contain the indivisible whole.
So what does this all mean? Look at this lineup. You have ancient Sanskrit texts from India, an awakened prince from Nepal, Christian monks from medieval Europe, Sufi poets from the Middle East, and sages from ancient China.
Wildly different cultures, entirely different languages, totally distinct religious symbols.
But when you strip away the cultural clothing, they all converge on one singular, earth-shattering insight. The separate, isolated ego is not the deepest truth of who you are.
The reality they describe is an indivisible whole. And it is crucial to clarify a major misconception here. Many people think mysticism is about detachment.
They picture a monk hiding in a cave in the Himalayas, meditating for 20 years, trying to check out and avoid the messiness of human life.
Right, they think it's about escaping reality because reality is too hard.
Exactly. But true mystics, the ones who actually integrated this insight, were never asking people to escape the world. They were inviting them to truly, fully awaken to it.
To see the world as it actually is, free from the heavy, distorting filters of the constructed psychological narrative. It wasn't about leaving the world. It was about realizing your absolute intimacy with it.
It is so fascinating to me that modern quantum mechanics, like David Bohm's concept of the implicate undivided order that we talked about earlier, and ancient mysticism, are basically using completely different vocabularies to point at the exact same underlying reality.
Physics uses mathematics, wave functions, and entanglement to describe it. Mysticism uses poetry, meditation, and metaphor to describe it.
But they're describing the exact same indivisible ocean.
The language differs based on the tools of the era, but the destination is identical. It's the realization that awakening isn't about becoming something extraordinary.
It's not about gaining a spiritual superpower or floating off the ground.
It is simply quietly dropping the illusion of separation.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. We can sit here for another 3 hours talking about quantum probability waves and epistemology and cognitive schemas and reciting Rumi poetry.
But reading a book about the ocean doesn't make you wet.
Trading complex concepts is still just trading concepts. It keeps the insight trapped in the intellect. The only way to truly grasp what Bandra is pointing to in the nature of reality is to test it.
You have to step away from the theories and step into the laboratory of your own mind.
Which brings us to the most practical part of our discussion, direct experience. I want to invite you, the listener, to do an experiment with us right now.
Put aside every philosophy we've discussed today.
Put aside every religious text, every scientific theory, every spiritual teaching. Empty the cup completely. Forget what you think you know.
If you are in a place where it is safe to do so, obviously please keep your eyes open if you are driving a vehicle, but if you are sitting at home or on a train, close your eyes for just a moment. Just pause.
We are going to do a brief, direct investigation of reality as it is appearing right now. First, without judging them, just notice the sounds happening around you.
Maybe it's the hum of a refrigerator, the sound of traffic passing by outside, or just the sound of my voice coming through your speakers.
Don't label the sounds. Don't think about what is making them. Just notice the raw experience of hearing happening.
Now let the sounds fade into the background and shift your attention to notice the physical sensations in your body.
Feel the gravity pulling your weight down into your chair or your shoes. Notice the temperature of the air resting on your skin. Notice the subtle rise and fall of your chest as your body breathes itself.
Now look a little closer into the mind itself. Notice the thoughts that are passing through your head.
Maybe you're thinking, am I doing this meditation right? Or, what am I having for dinner later? Or, this is weird.
Notice those thoughts simply as objects appearing in your mind, like clouds floating across a vast sky. Notice any emotions present. Maybe there is a sense of calmness, maybe some boredom, maybe curiosity.
Now we ask the crucial transformative question that flips the entire paradigm. You are aware of the sounds, you are aware of the bodily sensations, you are aware of the thoughts and the passing emotions. What is aware of them?
Turn the camera of your attention around. Look for the observer. You see the objects in awareness, but can you find the awareness itself?
Can it be seen as a physical object?
Investigate it directly right now. Does this awareness have an edge? Does it have a boundary where it stops and something else begins?
Does it have a specific color?
Does your fundamental awareness have an age? Does it have a nationality, a political affiliation, a religion, a gender?
Think about the deeply transient nature of reality. Look at your life. Every single thing we just noticed is constantly changing.
Thoughts come and go in a fraction of a second. 1 minute you're furious about traffic, the next you're laughing at a podcast.
Emotions come and go like weather patterns. Your physical body is entirely different than it was when you were a 5-year-old child. Nearly every cell has been replaced.
Your memories change and fade. Even your core personality traits evolve as you age.
Everything you normally consider to be you, your body, your thoughts, your history, your personality, is in a state of relentless, constant flux.
Yet despite all of that relentless change, something has remained continuously, perfectly present through every single stage of your life.
The simple, undeniable fact of being aware, the light of consciousness itself. It was the exact same awareness looking out of your eyes when you were a child watching a bug on the sidewalk, as it was when you graduated school, as it is right now as you listen to this audio.
The movie on the screen changed entirely, but the screen itself never moved.
This is why we emphasize that this isn't a religious dogma you have to blindly believe. You don't have to take our word for it or Bandra's word for it. It is a fundamental empirical fact to notice in your own direct experience.
I mean, let's really look at the mechanics of thought for a second. Did you consciously make your last thought arrive?
Did you go into a back room of your brain, meticulously assemble the words of the sentence you just thought to yourself, and then push it onto the stage?
No, it just appeared out of nowhere. Can you stop the next thought from coming? Try it right now. Try not to think a single thought for 10 seconds.
You can't. Thoughts just happen spontaneously. And what exactly is it that knows the thought has appeared? That silent knowing, that spacious, unbroken awareness, that is what we are pointing to.
By doing this simple investigation, we shift from passively consuming information to actively observing the nature of our own consciousness. We stop being completely lost in the drama of the movie, and we take a moment to look at the blank screen upon which it is playing.
Okay, so you do the exercise, you notice this, you catch a glimpse of this unchanging, unshakable awareness that is the background of your entire life. It's a profound moment of clarity.
But once that is noticed, the final and perhaps most important step is understanding the practical application.
How does this realization actually change the way we walk through the world on a random Tuesday morning?
Which brings us to living the insight. Because if a philosophy or a spiritual realization doesn't actually change how you live, how you treat people, and how you handle adversity, it's just intellectual entertainment. It's a useless party trick.
Right. But suppose, just for a moment, that you really internalize this worldview. Suppose you walk out of your front door living from the understanding that reality is not happening to you, a tiny, isolated victim in a hostile universe, but is unfolding through awareness, which is your deepest shared nature. How does your everyday life actually change?
Well, the practical results in human psychology can be profound. For one, you stop carrying every disappointment, every perceived failure as a heavy personal indictment of your self-worth.
You stop taking the movie so personally.
If a wave crashes and dissolves on the beach, it isn't a failure of the wave. It's just the natural movement of the ocean doing what oceans do.
Yes. You realize that much of what happens in life is just the complex machinery of the universe unfolding? And on the flip side, you meet your successes with deep, genuine gratitude instead of arrogant superiority.
You realize that the genetic, environmental, and cultural conditions that led to your success were also just the universe unfolding.
You begin to approach disagreements with curiosity instead of instant defensive hostility, because you realize that beneath the differing opinions, the person you are arguing with is fundamentally made of the exact same awareness that you are.
This raises an important question, though, and it's one that skeptics very rightly point out when confronting these non-dual philosophies.
Does this realization magically cure all human suffering?
Does it make you immune to the tragedies of life?
Absolutely not. And anyone who sells you a philosophy, a book, or a retreat that promises you will never feel emotional pain again is trying to scam you.
This insight does not remove the profound grief of losing a loved one. It does not eliminate the physical pain of breaking your leg.
It certainly does not excuse societal injustice, or mean we should just sit under a tree and not fight to make the world a better, fair place.
What it does do, however, is radically soften the illusion of separation that amplifies our pain into chronic suffering. In Buddhist psychology, they talk about the two arrows.
The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life, the injury, the loss, the sickness. You can't avoid the first arrow.
But the second arrow is our reaction to it. It's the narrative of, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair. My life is ruined.
The second arrow is optional suffering. This insight removes the second arrow.
Exactly. The raw pain might still be there, but the poor me narrative starts to dissolve. You begin to recognize that beneath the vastly different cultures, beneath the conflicting religions, beneath the polarized political opinions that divide us, every single human being shares the exact same profound mystery of existence.
We return to Boehm's metaphor of the ocean. When you look out at humanity, the waves differ wildly. They differ in size, in shape, in force, in color. Some are gentle and nurturing, some are destructive and chaotic.
But the ocean, the underlying reality, the silent awareness in which it all appears, remains definitively one. Living this insight shifts human interaction at a fundamental level.
It moves us away from viewing life as a brutal, zero-sum battlefield of isolated, disconnected individuals fighting for scraps of survival, and moves us towards seeing it as a shared, incredibly diverse expression of one continuous reality.
It's the difference between feeling like a terrified stranger in a cold, hostile mechanical universe and feeling like you are actually an integral, necessary part of the fabric of reality itself.
That is the beautiful essence of what Bandra is capturing in the nature of reality. You are not a stranger here. You belong here because you are here.
As we start to bring this deep dive to a close, I want to zoom out one last time.
Let's take everything we've discussed today, the neuroscience, the quantum physics, the philosophy, the mysticism, and take it all the way out to the scale of the cosmos.
Think about the entire known history of the universe. 14 billion years of immense expansion.
Billions of years of giant stars forming, burning through their fuel, and exploding in supernovas to forge the heavy elements. Galaxies colliding in the dark.
Planets cooling over eons. Single-celled organisms emerging in primordial oceans, evolving over millions of years into incredibly complex biological creatures.
Eventually developing a nervous system capable of looking up at the night sky and asking questions.
It is an unimaginably vast, beautiful, and complex process.
Suppose the universe, through all of that unimaginable time, through all of those endless shifting forms, has fundamentally been asking itself one single question for 13.8 billion years.
What am I?
Yes. What am I? Think about the staggering magnitude of that. Every star that burns in the void, every galaxy that spirals, every quantum atom that vibrates.
Every single human being walking the earth right now. Every child learning to speak their first words.
Every philosopher writing a complex treatise on epistemology, every scientist peering through an electron microscope, every mystic meditating in profound silence.
All of it.
Yeah.
Every single bit of it is simply the universe exploring that exact same question from an infinite number of different points of view.
It beautifully synthesizes everything we've discussed. You are not separate from reality because it is impossible for you to have ever been separate from it.
Awakening, whether you look at it through the lens of a neuroscientist, a quantum physicist like Schrödinger, a psychologist analyzing narratives, or a mystic reading the Tao Te Ching, is simply realizing that the tiny individual asking the question and the infinite reality being questioned are the exact same thing.
Perhaps reality has never been trying to hide from you. That is a deeply profound thought. We spend so much of our lives desperately searching.
Searching for the ultimate truth, searching for meaning, searching for God, searching for spiritual enlightenment, as if it's some object hiding behind a rock on the other side of the world.
But perhaps it has been looking through your eyes since the very day you were born. Every golden sunrise you've ever witnessed, every heartbeat you've ever felt thump in your chest, every deep, laughing conversation you've ever had with a friend that isn't happening to you.
That is reality discovering itself, right here, right now, through you.
It brings a sense of sacredness back to totally ordinary life. You don't need to be meditating in an ancient temple or running experiments in a particle accelerator to experience the absolute truth of the universe.
You just need to be aware that you are aware while doing the dishes.
I want to leave you with one final practical challenge. Something for you to take with you when this audio stops and you go back to the reality of your day.
Before your next thought appears. Before your next judgment about someone else who cut you off in traffic. Before your next waves of anxiety about the future or fear about the past. Just pause.
Take one single second to notice the quiet awareness in which that thought, that judgment, or that fear is unfolding. That silent, spacious awareness was there before your earliest childhood memory.
It was there before your parents gave you your name. It was there before you constructed your identity, your career, your political beliefs, and your personal story.
And it is completely unharmed and completely present right here, right now.
The next time you walk past a mirror, I want you to stop, look yourself directly in the eyes, and ask yourself a question.
Is the person looking back at me the true observer, or is that face, that name, that story just another beautiful temporary phenomenon appearing inside the true observer?
Think about the planetarium. Are you the fleeting images projected onto the ceiling, or are you the light in the center of the room?
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest questions of life, consciousness, and reality. I am Julia Carter, and it is my honor to introduce Joe Bandra, author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and lifelong explorer of life's questions. Through his writing, Joe bridges science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and direct experience in a search for truth. His first book, Finding Nevaeh, is a transformative journey of self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, chronicles his remarkable career and the evolution of healthcare technology. His next book, The Nature of Reality, explores consciousness, existence, and the mysteries at the heart of human experience. Joe's work invites us to look beyond what we think we know and awaken to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
Life often feels like an endless list of tasks, constant noise and distractions, pulling us in every direction. We're all searching for happiness, but what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along?
This was Nevaeh's journey. Lost in the noise, she felt cut off from the peace and happiness she longed for, until she met Joe Bandra, an unconventional, insightful philosopher with a different perspective. Jay, as he is simply known, didn't hand her a map. He gave her something far more valuable, a compass, a way to turn inward, navigate her own thoughts, and uncover the clarity hidden beneath the chaos.
Readers around the world have been touched and inspired by Finding Nevaeh.
Your journey to inner peace begins now. Get your copy of Finding Nevaeh, available on Amazon and at findingnevaeh.org, or listen to the audiobook on Audible, Spotify, Apple, and other platforms.